guys a story about my television because I don't know if you can tell, but hold on. That TV looks significantly larger than the one that was there the last time I filmed in this spot. I don't know if you guys are gamers or if you have partners that are gamers or whatever, roommates, whatever, but the new Call of Duty came out not that long ago, and so my boyfriend plays 2 games a year. He plays the new 2K and he plays the new Call of Duty, and like that's really it. And then he'll play it for like the first few months it comes out, and then he'll never touch it again, but that's a whole different story. So it came out recently and he wants to play, whatever. And he goes, turn on the TV. There's a giant dark spot covering like part of the TV, like straight through the middle. He's like, I can't play like this. He's like, I can't play like this. I gotta go buy a new TV right now. And it was like, oh what? It's like 6:30 on a Friday. We both, worked, and I was like, what? Who just decides they're gonna buy a TV? I was like, I can't play like this. So he's like texting his friend and his brother like pictures of the TV saying, does anybody wanna buy this 65-inch? That's what that is, like this 65-inch off of me, $100, because it's like broken. So I start looking into it a little bit more, and I find out that it's something called like dead pixels. And I'm like, dead pixel, okay. And then these people are saying online you can play this YouTube video and it'll like fix it. But Jay's just like in his brain, he's like, I'm getting a new TV. So I'm like, okay, we already had this discussion like a few weeks ago that he wanted a 75-inch, which is sick. Okay, like that's, nobody needs a 75-inch TV. Okay, nobody needs a 65-inch TV. But whatever. He works hard for his money. I'm not gonna tell him how to spend it. He wants a 75-inch, but we had agreed that it would be crazy to buy that. And then in a year and a half, a year, however long, ship it, or like not ship it, but like trek it across the country, during our move. We're like, that's way too much chance of it breaking, like whatever. So we agreed, we're gonna wait till we move, then we'll buy one. But now we have a broken TV, so like we have to get one. So we go to Walmart and we find a really good, deal on a 75-inch, and it was a Roku TV, like the Roku ones. But that wasn't like the brand. I don't know what the brand was. But it's like one of those Roku ones, if you know what I'm talking about. I've never had a Roku TV. He's never had one, so we weren't really sure what to expect. But we buy it. We take it home. It barely fits in my car. Like I have an SUV, but it barely fit. Like I was driving home, literally like to the steering wheel because my seat was so far up. I was like, I can't move my legs to hit the pedals. So we get it home. I don't know if I said this, I might have forgotten this part, but right before we left, I had turned on one of those YouTube videos that it swore it was gonna fix the dead pixels, okay? Like, it was like 1:30 of a video. And right before we left, Jay had ran back in the house to grab something he forgot, and he said, what the heck did you turn on the TV? Like, are you trying to give our dog a seizure while we're gone? Like, what is that? I was like, what was it? Like, what was playing? He's like, it was flashing strobe lights and colors, like it looked like a club in there. And I was like, oh, I don't know, I turned on this thing that said it would fix the dead pixels. We're like, okay, yeah, whatever. We get home. We both walk by the TV that's playing, okay, like it's still playing. We walk by, I'm like starting to make myself something for dinner. We're about to bring the TV inside. And all of a sudden I stop and I look at the TV and I was like, babe. And he was like, what? And I was like, babe. And he looked and I looked. The YouTube video fixed it. It was literally back to normal, perfectly fine. So now we have this 75-inch TV sitting in my car that we just purchased, that we didn't need to buy, because if we had just waited a minute and 30 show is like 100 favorite pictures. I think you can like upload your own, but I was like, not doing all that. I don't know if you guys just heard that, but I think my neighbor just like told his partner or something to like have a good day. And it's just really funny because I don't know if you guys heard it, but have you ever been watching an ASMR video and you hear like, especially women, okay, like you hear this man in the background all of a sudden, and it's so hard to tell, like, did that happen in real life or did it happen in the video? So you're like ripping out your headphones like, who's in my house? And then you like hit the back button and realize it plays again and it was in the video. So I'm sorry if that happened to any of you. I don't know if I mentioned this, Jay and I had gone to Barnes and Noble a few weeks ago, and I got this journal. When I did my bookshelf tour, help me organize it, whatever, I had showed you guys that there was a book by Glennon Doyle called Untamed that I had read years ago that I don't necessarily agree with every single thing that she wrote, or every single lesson or whatever, but there were a lot of stories and lessons that she had talked about in there that I did agree with, that really stuck with me. And I found that she had like a little journal. With this journal, there are certain prompts that I'm like, okay, yes, like that really resonates with me. That is something that I definitely want to fill out. But then there's other things that just don't really, so I probably won't fill them out. At least not at this time. For example, there was one called When You Were a Child, What Types of Things Did You Love to Do? And for that, it actually took me a minute to fill out, but I did find. I did find 5 things, they're so random, that I liked to do as a child. But then there were other things that just like didn't sit with me, that I just didn't care about, like, what were you trained to believe or conditioned to believe makes a good wife / partner? If I'm being honest, I feel like it was supposed to be taken in like a negative way of like, what is society, or what is your religion, or your parents, or whatever, what is that taught you about what it means to be a good wife, a good partner? But for me, I've never really been conditioned in a negative way about what it means to be a good partner, and so I think, for like in that situation, that prompt didn't really call to me. But I just thought, I'll talk a little bit about my experiences with mental health therapy, very vaguely about why I ever ended up going, but hopefully specific enough that it can maybe make some of you that have experienced similar things feel a little more seen. If I sound out of breath, it's because I just ran downstairs and then like sprinted back up to microwave my coffee. Because I was like, if I'm gonna get into this, like, look, I'm already getting like hives. No, I'm just kidding. I need some more coffee. So, basically, my experience with mental health and with therapy is very broad. I've had good experiences, I've had poor experiences, and I've had good experiences that have years later now left a bad taste in my mouth. So let's talk about it. I'll start with when I was 17. I was a senior in high school, upended my entire life. And overnight, I now lived on the East Coast, staying with extended family. I was at a new school, a new high school, halfway through my senior year. It was a very preppy, ritzy, small town. Everybody knows everybody and they've known each other since kindergarten, which already made finding friends hard. But what nobody knew is that I had this really dark situation happening in my family. All the meanwhile, I'm trying to pass algebra and graduate, making it even harder to make friends because I became incredibly depressed and I slept through all my classes, or I left early every day. I would ask my Nana to come pick me up because I couldn't drive. I couldn't get my license until I was 18 because in Arizona we did not have driver's ed. It was basically you turn 15 and a half, you get a permit, and it is expected that your parents teach you how to drive over the next 6 months, and once you are 16 you go to the DMP, you take your driver's licensing test, and you get your license. However, my home life was not ideal. It wasn't, so I did not learn how to drive. My mom didn't feel comfortable teaching me how to drive. We only had one car for a majority of my teenage years, so if I did something stupid learning to drive and I crashed the car, that's it. So I didn't learn how to drive. Once I lived on the East Coast with extended family, I had missed driver's ed in the state that I moved to. That was something you took as a sophomore and I was a senior. So I was no longer eligible to take it. I was just shy of my 18th birthday. And on my 18th birthday, that was when I could actually go to the DMV, get a permit. 10 days later, get a license. Because I was now an adult. They don't make you wait the 6 months or however long they do for underage people. But when I first moved there, I was only 17. So I didn't have a parental guardian. I didn't have a legal guardian. So I didn't have anyone to sign off on me getting a permit before the age of 18. So I just found it incredibly difficult to make friends. I was the weird girl who popped out of nowhere right before graduation, slept in all her classes, went home early, didn't talked, but I was a shell of a human. I was a shell of the person that I really am, which is very chatty, outgoing, chatty to a fault. I make things awkward because of how chatty I am. I had really lost my light. So my uncle is my mom's brother. That is who I ended up living with for a few years, a couple of years. And he was like, I think you need to see a therapist. I was like, okay, sure. So I go see this therapist. She just wasn't very helpful. There's this one specific thing that sticks out in my brain that she said to me one time that I thought was so absolutely insane about the situation. this is a lot of money for you to go. Is it helping you at all? Like, do you feel any better? And I'm like, no. He's like, does this just feel like girl time? You're just sitting and chatting. I was like, yeah, literally, I feel nothing. And he was like, okay, we're done with her. So I didn't go back to her anymore. I then graduated high school, and the idea of going to college at that point was impossible. Like, impossible for me to, one, return back to Arizona, where I was accepted to college. It didn't feel like Arizona felt scary to me. Like, it felt, I don't want to say unsafe, because that's not really the right word. I don't know what the right word is, but there was no world in which I was going back. It was too late for me to then go to college in the East Coast. Like, at that point, I mean, it was just too late. And I was like, okay, well, I guess I'm gonna go to school for aesthetics, and that's where I then got my esthetician license. So I've had that since I was 19. I basically was still just in my head, feeling like at this point I'm like 19, it's been a couple years, and I'm feeling as though I'm better, I'm healed, I don't have any childhood trauma, what's that, but decisions I was making in my life were indicative that I was not healed, I was not feeling better, I was not, so I decide to seek out therapy on my own. I find a therapist, and immediately I loved her. She made me feel very, very safe. In fact, when I had first met her, I didn't have health insurance, and I couldn't afford her copay. I didn't know it at the time. Of filling out the packet and all of that, she had kind of said, like, we'll talk about this, like, we'll, whatever. We'll talk about it eventually, whatever. She just wanted to get her first, like, sit-down assessment of me, of my life, whatever. And I think she just saw in me a girl who wanted to be better. wasn't right, but your parents maybe still justified it. They did the whole, oh, because I was such a terrible parent, wasn't I? You know, that whole guilt trip, you know, and it just feels very invalidating. But I am incredibly lucky to have a parent that can look, that's healed enough herself that she can look back and say, what was that? Please, like, ask me for my forgiveness, you know? But I think that therapy was helping me in the sense of just having someone that I could talk to about all of this stuff, you know? When I had a bad week, when I had something crazy happen. I then ended up in a really bad relationship / situationship, depended on the season. And it was really bad. And the worst part is that I don't even think that this person thinks that they were as traumatizing to me or hurtful or whatever to me, you know? It was the typical, all of the friends and the family think that this is the nicest, most amazing, kindest, phenomenal, helpful person on the planet, you know? And then, like, you are with them and you're like, what? If you guys have listened to Ariana Grande's Eternal Sunshine, there are several lines from that I think I can relate to that situation. One of them being, I've never seen someone lie like you so much even you start to think it's true. Get me out of this loop. I think this person genuinely thinks they're a good person. And I'll just leave it at that. But it's funny because I was going to therapy to cope with someone in my life that could have highly benefited from therapy, but didn't go. And I think there comes a time where you have to just decide you've had enough. And I did, finally. After years. But similar to me saying that there were certain things that one first therapist I saw said that I'll never forget. There are things that person said to me that I'll never forget. And I knew the craziest part is that, like, I should have known this person being in my life was not right the minute that I started acting out of character. Because I'm not gonna sit here and say that I was perfect in this situation. The whole situation was toxic. And it's because I started, you know, I allowed this person to keep me act out of character. You know, like things that I would never do prior, that I've never done since, that I've never behaved in such a way, I've never, you know, whatever, in such a way that this person would bring that out of me, and I'm like, this is chaos, this is insanity. Like, my nervous system, like, biologically, physically, my nervous system was destroyed by this individual and by myself for allowing that to happen. So a lot because once in your life you get to experience it. And when you do, I hope it stays forever. Because I think just as much as therapy healed me, love like that, whether it's from a partner, a friend, yourself, that's really, I think, what healed me. So I had gone to therapy at this point now with this same therapist for about 5 years or so. Nearing the end of our sessions together, which we'll get to, I had started to find God. I have never experienced religious trauma. However, my best friend in the entire world, she has. And I know so many others do as well, have religious trauma. But I think if you are lucky enough to find God yourself without people shoving it down your throat in a negative way, or shaming you into it, or, anything like that, I think it's actually a really powerful thing. I was never religious growing up. However, within the last few years, I have seen things relating to God that are undeniable. Like, truly, I cannot deny what I have witnessed through the power of God. And I think that has also really led to my healing. So I think already in starting to find God, my perspective of going to therapy not shifted, but I felt peace and healing through that. And I didn't really feel the need anymore to try and find it through speaking to, my therapist. I had sort of started to lessen my sessions years before it had gone from 2 to 1 session a week. I think during COVID is when it kind of went into like 1 session a week, and I felt even then it was starting to be too much. Like, I felt better, and I did not know if it was because of the tools that I had learned over the years in therapy, or if it was because of the peace that God was giving me, and my life sort of starting to fall into place the way that I had always dreamed, the way that little cat had always dreamed of happening. To this day, I still don't know. But I had started canceling my sessions with my therapist, and just telling her, I'm feeling better, and I have been coming for years, and maybe instead of once a week, I believe I started going every other week. I don't see her anymore. The reason is because basically, a therapist, I do believe, in a sense, should remain unbiased to situations. Basically, about 3 years ago, I was on a path of forgiveness, of healing, of, as I said before, just feeling like my life was finally falling into place, and I was having hard conversations with people that I believe I was always owed these conversations, and, really just like working through things. And so one session, I had spoken to my therapist about how excited I was is the most sincere and genuine change, and this is amazing, you know. And as I said earlier, I do believe that there are some situations that a therapist should remain unbiased in. And so I don't know if this was from a place of trying to protect me, or if this was just my own therapist's bias towards this situation in my life, this person in my life, whatever. Which also, prefacing with, we're not talking about the ex-boyfriend. But she didn't meet my excitement. Instead, she tried to sort of plant little seeds of doubt. And I was just like, I don't like that. That's not very funky fresh. That's just like funky. So I was like, okay, like, I understand, you know, that you're cautious, but, you know, I am feeling drawn to really pursue this and really see, to be excited. I'm sorry, like, I'm excited about it, I am. I'm seeing growth, and my therapist almost was like, you think that's growth? Like, it was weird. It was like, as a therapist, she should understand baby steps, right? Like, people take baby steps. You are not just one way and the next day you're full 180. So I found it weird that I'm so excited about this baby step moment that I witnessed, that I'm feeling drawn to, you know, and she was like, I don't really see what your excitement's about, like, okay. And I'm not gonna lie, it rubbed me the wrong way. However, I didn't let on that it did. I didn't, you know, I wasn't angry at her. I had figured she loves me at this point, you know, like, and I don't mean like loves me, like we're BFFs or whatever, but like, she has a care for me. I have been seeing this woman for 5 years, okay? She has a care for me. She just wants to protect me. So I end up needing to cancel my next session. Like, I just had to. Something had come up and I wasn't able to go. She's like, okay, do you want to reschedule? I said, yes, let's reschedule for blah, 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 blah. August 2nd, whatever, let's just say. So she's like, okay, August 2nd, got it. Sorry, that was my stomach. August 2nd comes around, and I never got the text that automatically, like, usually you get a text that gets sent that says, like, hey, your session's coming up in 2 days, whatever. But I show up anyway. I'm sitting in the waiting room for quite some time. It had been like 10 minutes, and I was like, okay. And I go walk around the corner, and I notice that the door is shut, and she's fully engaged with another client. I realized that this was like middle of a session, therapist with the door shut with a client. I was like, dang, she must have forgotten to put me on the actual books. Like, she texted me that, yeah, we could move it to August 2nd, but she must have forgotten and then booked somebody else and totally forgot. That's no big deal, but to be honest, I was embarrassed. I was like, this is so awkward that I just like showed up. So in my embarrassment of the situation, I didn't say anything. I left. I didn't send a text. I didn't call her. I figured, I'm sure in a couple days she's gonna realize what happened, and then like she'll be like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry, Kat, like, whatever. I never heard from her again. I never, not an email, phone call, you guys love it, but if you've made it this far, let me know, like, do you agree that I'm justified in my feeling of betrayal? I would just expect you're a mental health professional, and of course the reason that I dropped off was not for any real specifics. Like, I wasn't so depressed I couldn't pick up the phone, or, you know, like, I was actually in a very good place, which is honestly why I never really reached out again to her, because I thought she would eventually reach out to me, and then when she didn't, I got kind of bitter about it. I'm bitter. I feel betrayed. I feel like I gave years of my life trusting this woman and feeling like she genuinely cared about me. And to just never receive a text or a call like, hey, are you okay? Like, I haven't heard from you. And at that point, I would have told her, like, yeah, I showed up for my appointment. I think you forgot to put it on the books, whatever. But for me, it wasn't ever worth reaching out again. Also, just because I didn't, at that point, want to see her anymore. And, you know, maybe she could feel that. Maybe she could feel that I was sort of growing out of therapy. I was feeling better. I was coping on my own, coping through God, coping through, you know, whatever healthy things. And but either way, you would just think she would reach out, like, just in case that wasn't the case, you know, like, for your client to just fall off the face of the planet and then you never reach out. And it's not like I started seeing you for 2 months, I've seen you for 5 years. I felt so betrayed and bitter, and I genuinely thought this woman cared about me. And then it makes me second guess everything, where now I'm like, did she like begrudgingly like roll her eyes every time she knew that it was like a session with me? You know what I mean? Like, it just, you know. So I do believe that the 5 years that I had with her was very, very helpful. Just having that third party person to talk to. I think lines got blurred a little bit once I started almost having like a mind of my own and not really needing her advice anymore, and deciding that I knew what was best for me and I didn't have to ask her what her perspective was. I think maybe things got weird. And I don't know what happened, but I know that I do believe that it helped me regardless of how things ended. I'm still a proponent for therapy. I think sometimes it can be a Hail Mary when you are just like, I don't even know what to do at this point. I am so sad. I am so anxious. I am so, you know. I think finding the right therapist is really genuinely helpful, and it can really help you to cope with things, just having a third party person that you can speak to. But the way things ended left me bitter. That is my ramble about my mental health journey, some of the things that I went through that led me to therapy, my experience with therapy, and I'm hoping that something maybe resonated with you, but if it didn't, maybe you were just like interested in, you know, the tea, but also maybe this was just relaxing, because I swear at this point this is like an hour-long video. This is gonna take so long to edit. But yeah, I just thought, you know, ASMR, a lot of it is healing, a lot of it is peacefulness, a lot of it is connection, and a lot of times we follow people and we don't really know them, we don't know their story, and it takes, you know, years and years and years to pick up on who they are as a person and, you know, their story and whatever. And I just thought maybe we're still in the early parts of my channel, I could share a little